Hi guys, so this is the day after the Model 3 launch event where they handed out the first 30 Tesla Model 3s, and I watched the event and I wanted a little bit of time to gather my thoughts and sort of see what additional information came out. And I have mixed feelings, and I just kind of wanted to go over them. First is I am a little disappointed. And it's not in the car necessarily, but I was disappointed in the presentation and the sort of sales pitch and how Tesla continues to seem to be handling business. So, some of it's little stuff, but it accumulates over time. So one of the things was they had the dig about the Motor Trend Car of the Year, and the guy was basically reading a press release from like 3 years ago, but it was sort of framed in a way that was like, oh, the Model S, the Tesla Model S is the only car, the only EV to ever win the Motor Trend Car of the Year. Clearly that's not the case. And then the other thing is too, like the crash test video involving Volvo, and for a while people were assuming that Tesla and Volvo might be coordinating for Volvo to be producing electric vehicles. Now it doesn't quite look like that. And the other thing is too, it seems curious to me that they would pick on Volvo. Yes, Volvo has been known as a safety standard for a long time, but they also are a car manufacturer that just announced that they're basically going to be competing in the EV marketplace and essentially competing head-to-head with Tesla. So it's hard to determine whether those digs were because of some sort of perceived competition that Tesla might be facing in the marketplace, and I hope that's not the case. Now, otherwise, the presentation was pretty straightforward. They went through the history, and I mean, that's all fine. The other disappointment, and this is really my only major criticism of the Model 3 right now, is its price. I knew it was going to be pretty pricey, but I feel like it's even higher than what I was expecting. And I realized that part of that is the margins. Tesla's still not at the point of making the margins off of a car like the Model 3 that they would need to in order to justify mass production. And hopefully it will get there soon, but I'm a little concerned. And the other thing is too, with that pricing, I feel like another sort of subtle dig that had been made in the past was when they did their unveiling of the Model 3 years, was it a year ago almost? Wow. But basically it was to address the Bolt EV in many ways. I know it was never overtly stated that way, but basically everything that they did was to address what GM had just recently released about the Bolt EV, and one of those things was the price. So GM says, oh, the Bolt EV is going to have an MSRP of $36,620. Oh, well, the Model 3 is going to have a $35,000 MSRP. And I think it's coming back to bite them now, because the small battery base version that they're releasing at $35,000 is, they're going to be selling it at a loss. There's no doubt about that. But also the pack size is smaller than was anticipated. And this is where I feel like now the customers are going to start suffering as a result of sort of sticking to this, oh, it's going to be $35,000, it's going to be the cheapest sort of mainstream EV. I would have much rather had them match the Bolt EV's price or even exceed it a little bit, if it meant that it was going to come with a 60 kilowatt hour battery. That extra 10 to 20 miles of base range I think is important, because I think 220 miles of EPA estimated range it's really scraping the bottom of what's acceptable, in my opinion, now for a mainstream electric car. And then the other thing about the price, of course, everything's going to cost money. You don't like the Aero wheels, $1,500. You don't like black paint, another $1,000. The premium upgrading package, so all the interiors you saw, that's all $5,000 more. The autopilot and the self-driving, that's $5,000, and then $3,000 for the self-driving, and then of course it's $9,000 if you want to go from a 220 range vehicle, a 220 mile range vehicle to a 310 mile range vehicle. So it's going to be pricey, and we still don't know what the base interior of the Model 3 is going to look like. Now that I got that out of the way, I just wanted to go over the car itself and what I did and didn't like about it. So for the most part, I liked the car. I feel like it's every bit the car that BMW would release if they actually had the tenacity to sort of pursue electric vehicles like they should be, not doing these half measures in these compliance cars that they've been doing up to this point. So I think it compares very nicely with the 3 Series. It seems like those are very valid competitors, and it's good that we finally have a car offering in that space. The other thing is I like how that $8,000 package for this self-driving is you don't have to buy it now. It comes with the car and you can engage it later, because right now there's not a whole lot of ROI, return on investment, for that $8,000. I personally don't want any of those features for my own driving. However, if you told me I could buy a $45,000 car that when I'm at work I can just send it out to give people rides and I can, earn revenue that way, the car then suddenly pays for itself. So it's nice that that feature was built in there to sort of in the future allow you to buy that. And then of course the biggest advantage is that they come supercharger equipped, right? There's no doubt that network right now is what enables Teslas to be complete long-range vehicles. Somewhere even something like the Bolt EV with its 240 miles of range, it struggles with in certain areas of the country. So that's good, and of course it's 130 miles in 30 minutes or 170 miles in 30 minutes, basically based on the battery size of the Model 3. So the charging speed is adequate. Some of the things that I dislike though are I don't like that they're wanting the phone to be the key. That's bad. I like the redundancy of having a fob, and there have been numerous times when I've walked out to my Bolt EV, I've checked my pockets, I don't have my keys, but I have my phone. Now I realize this sounds like an argument in favor, but it can work the opposite way. A lot of times you can show up to your car and maybe you left your phone behind. It's a habit. People will do that. And then, oh, now I have to go get my phone again. And that is if your phone isn't dead or you haven't lost it. So I see some concerning issues if they're not going to release a regular fob. The other thing is, too, a small thing, I noticed that they limited it to 32 amp and 40 amp level 2 charging. I would have really liked to see them do the full 80 amps. It's actually something that I don't like about the Bolt EV either. Once you get up to this point of having 60, 70 kilowatt hour battery packs, you should be able to charge at home or on a destination charger in about 3 to 4 hours. You shouldn't have to wait 8, 9 hours to recharge. Some other things that are curiosities, right? That it seems that they're limiting the superchargers. So what I mean by that is Motor Trend released 10 things you need to know about the Model 3, and one of those things was that it will charge to full on a supercharger in 50 or 55 minutes depending on battery size. Well, that's not physically capable of happening with our current battery technology, especially not on a car that looks like it has an average charging rate of about 60 to 65 kilowatts. So what's happening there? My assumption is, and this is purely me, there's nothing to back this, but I feel like Tesla might have limited the amount you can supercharge to about 80 to 90% of total capacity. Now, why is that important? Well, one, it does benefit the network. It keeps people moving in and out of the superchargers and not hogging stalls for that last 10 to 20% that's going to take another hour to recharge like it does on the Bolt EV. But what happens is if you get the small battery Model 3, you could be left at a situation where you can't get to your destination because it won't let you charge past a certain point. So if you're limited to only charging up to 160 to 170 miles of range while using the superchargers, and that's EPA rated range, cold weather, bad weather. I've had situations driving through 35-degree weather with winds and fog rolling in, driving into 25-mile-an-hour headwind. No, 160 miles, 170 miles of EPA rated range is not going to be adequate. I feel like that's something that could be concerning in the future. Another curiosity, not a big deal, but the base Model 3 is about 265 pounds lighter than the larger battery Model 3, and yet it still has a slower 0 to 60 speed. Now the 0 to 60 times, they're good enough for most people. 5 to 5.5 seconds, you don't even need that. You don't even need the low 6-second 0 to 60 speed that the Bolt EV has. Though it can be fun. Now that being said, what it appears like is based on the curb weights, the power seems like it's about 180 to 185 kilowatts in the base Model 3 with the smaller battery, and about 215 in the upper end in the larger battery Model 3. So that seems like it's going to be an interesting to find out more about. So it's definitely smaller motors than you'll find in a Model S. Okay, so just some final closing thoughts. You know, I was just thinking about what if I bought a Model 3, which trim and what would I do based on what I've seen so far. From what I've seen, I would actually get probably the larger battery version. I think it actually is worth the $9,000. And of course, like I said, the self-driving features, those will come on later if I ever wanted to end up using it as a taxi cab. But more of the reason is it would be nice to have a vehicle that I could actually have my mother or my brother drive around in, where it would literally kind of taxi them around so that I wouldn't have to. So that's an aspect that I would prefer. I don't know that I would ever end up using it as a revenue generator. But again, the larger battery, just that extra range actually does matter, because I feel like the 220 miles of EPA estimated range is really sort of the bottom end of what you'd want. And I say this basically right now running my Bolt EV on Hilltop Reserve mode, so I'm already losing 10%, but I can get that 10% back at any time that I want, and so I think that's a big deal. So yeah, hopefully this launch goes really well for Tesla. Hopefully they ramp up the way they need to. I made this comment in some of the forums and some of the message groups, but I don't like the fact that there's so much sort of contention among different EV manufacturers, because the truth of the matter is GM and the success of the Bolt EV also sort of rest on the success of Tesla and the Model 3 and their lineup, and the same with all of the other manufacturers that are bringing electric vehicles onto market. It's that kind of adage of the rising tide lifts all ships. The more variety, the more compelling electric vehicles that are released onto the market, the more and more of a foothold they'll get, and the more acceptance from mainstream car buyers. So I really want to see the community of electric vehicle owners and the manufacturers that are actually making a committed effort try to start cooperating more and competing just a little bit less. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you think about the Model 3, whether you have a reservation, whether you're going to get in time to maybe take advantage of the tax credit, because it looks like Tesla is probably going to trigger that in Q2 of 2018. which makes a $44,000 Bolt EV, I mean, where am I? $44,000 Model 3 a lot more price competitive, and it does put it a lot more competitively placed among other EV offerings that are coming out. So again, thank you for listening, and let me know what you think. All right.